The man who was half light, half lie. You have been walking through your days like someone searching for a key they cannot name. There is something restless in your chest, something that stirs when the world grows quiet and you are left alone with the weight of your own breathing. Tonight, in this space between waking and sleeping, between the person you show the world and the one who lives in your silence, we begin a different kind of journey. The darkness outside your window is not empty. It is full of questions you have been afraid to ask, full of the voices you learned to silence before they could tell you their secrets. You have spent so many years building walls around the parts of yourself that felt too much, too raw, too real. But tonight, those walls begin to soften. You carry within you a man who is half light, half lie. The light is the part of you that remembers wonder, that still believes in the possibility of healing, that knows love exists even when it feels impossibly distant. The lie is everything you have been told about who you should be, everything you have accepted about your unworthiness, everything that whispers you are too broken to be whole. But what if the lie is not really a lie at all? What if it is simply a truth that has been waiting in the wrong light, like a photograph developed in darkness, showing only shadows when it could reveal the full spectrum of who you are? There is a place within you where these two halves meet. It is not a place you can find on any map, not a destination you can reach by thinking your way there. It is a place that exists in the space between your heartbeats, in the pause between your thoughts, in the moment when you stop trying to be anyone other than exactly who you are. You have been taught to fear this place. You have been told that looking too deeply into yourself is dangerous, that some doors are better left unopened, that some truths are too heavy to bear. But what if the opposite is true? What if the very act of turning away from yourself is what has made you feel so lost, so hollow, so perpetually hungry for something you cannot name? The night is calling you deeper, not deeper into sleep, but deeper into the waking dream, your own existence. There are parts of you that only come alive in darkness, parts that have been waiting patiently for you to stop running long enough to notice them. They are not the monsters you imagined. They are the orphaned children of your soul, the aspects of yourself that you abandoned when the world told you they were unacceptable. You remember being small, don't you? You remember the way the world felt enormous and full of possibility. the way your heart could break over a dead butterfly or soar over a dandelion, turning to wishes in your breath. You remember believing that you mattered, that your feelings were important, that the stories you told yourself about magic and meaning were not childish fantasies, but glimpses of a deeper truth. Somewhere along the way, you learned to be ashamed of that child. You learned that wonder was weakness, that sensitivity was a flaw to be corrected, that the parts of you that felt most alive were somehow wrong. You began to build a different version of yourself, one that could survive in a world that seemed to have no patience for tenderness, no room for the fullness of human feeling. But that child never really left. They have been living in the basement of your consciousness, in the rooms you never visit, tending to the dreams you abandoned and keeping alive the flames you thought you had extinguished. They have been waiting for you to remember that you are not just the person you became in order to survive. You are also the person you were before the world taught you to be afraid of your own depth. The man who is half light carries this child within him like a sacred secret. He knows that every moment of joy he has ever experienced has been a gift from this forgotten part of himself. Every instance of genuine connection, every flash of creativity, every moment when life suddenly felt worth living. The light in him is not separate from his darkness. It is illuminated by it, made precious by contrast, given meaning by the very struggles that threaten to extinguish it. The man who is half lie has been protecting this child in the only way he knew how. Every defense mechanism, every wall, every mask he learned to wear was an attempt to keep the tender parts safe from a world that seemed determined to wound them. The lie is not malicious, it is heartbroken. It is the part of him that believed the only way to survive was to become someone else, someone harder, someone who needed less, someone who could not be disappointed because they had stopped expecting anything good. But the protection became a prison. The walls that were meant to keep pain out also kept love from reaching the places where it was most needed. The masks that were supposed to make him acceptable made him feel invisible, even to himself. The lie that was meant to keep him safe became the thing that was slowly killing him, one unfelt feeling at a time. Tonight, in this space, between day and night, between the known and the unknown, between who you have been and who you might become, something different is possible. Tonight, you can begin to see that the light and the lie are not enemies warring for control of your soul. They are partners in a dance. You have not yet learned to appreciate two aspects of a whole that has been trying to teach you about the complexity of being human. You do not have to choose between them. You do not have to cut away the parts of yourself that seem inconsistent or imperfect. You do not have to solve the puzzle of your own existence or fix all the broken places before you can be worthy of love. You can begin instead with the radical act of seeing yourself clearly, without judgment, without the desperate need to be anyone other than who you are. The shadows in your room are not empty spaces where light should be. They are simply the places where light meets something solid, where illumination defines form, where visibility becomes possible. Your own shadows work the same way. They are not the absence of goodness in you. They are the places where your light encounters the substance of your experience, where your capacity for brightness is given shape and meaning. You have been afraid of your anger, haven't you? You have been taught that it makes you dangerous, that it proves you are bad, that good people do not feel the rage that sometimes burns in your chest when you think about all the ways you have been diminished, dismissed, or betrayed. But what if your anger is not a character flaw? What if it is your soul's way of telling you that something precious in you recognizes its own worth and refuses to be destroyed? You have been ashamed of your sadness, the way it seems to come from a nowhere sometimes, the way it can turn a perfectly ordinary day into something that feels impossibly heavy. You have been told that depression is a weakness, that grief is self-indulgence, that the answer to pain is to think more positively, to focus on what you have instead of what you lack. But what if your sadness is not a malfunction? What if it is your heart's way of honoring what has been lost, of recognizing that you are capable of loving so deeply that absence becomes a presence, that what is gone can still teach you about what matters? You have been terrified of your need, the way you sometimes hunger for connection with an intensity that feels shameful, the way you can feel simultaneously desperate for love and convinced that you are unlovable. You have learned to see this as evidence of your brokenness, proof that you are too much, too needy, too flawed to deserve the very thing you crave most. But what if your need is not a weakness? What if it is your humanity asserting itself, your deepest wisdom, reminding you that you were not meant to walk through this world alone? These feelings you have been running from are not accidents or mistakes. They are not punishments for some crime you cannot remember committing. They are the underground rivers of your inner landscape, the forces that have been shaping you from below the surface of your conscious awareness. They are part of the ecosystem of your soul, and like all natural systems, they have their own intelligence, their own purpose, their own gifts to offer if you can learn to listen. The man who is half light knows this. He has learned to see his pain not as evidence of his failure, but as proof of his capacity to feel, to care, to be affected by the beauty and brutality of existence. He has learned that his sensitivity is not a bug in his programming, but a feature, not a weakness to be overcome, but a strength to be honored. He has discovered that the very things that make him feel most vulnerable are also the things that make him most alive. But the man who is half lie still whispers his doubts. He still insists that safety lies in numbness, that the only way to avoid disappointment is to stop hoping, that the price of feeling deeply is too high to pay. He is not evil. He is scared. He has seen what happens when the heart opens fully to the world. He has witnessed the ways that love can become loss, that trust can become betrayal, that hope can become the cruelest joke of all. The lie learned to speak in your voice so convincingly that you forgot it was not your own truth. It learned to mimic your inner wisdom so perfectly that you began to believe its limitations were your limitations, its fears were your fears, its version of reality was the only version possible. It became so skilled at protecting you that it began to protect you from everything, including the very experiences that could heal the wounds it was trying to keep safe. But tonight, you can begin to distinguish between the voice of the lie and the voice of your deeper knowing. Tonight you can start. You can to recognize that the thoughts that tell you that you are hopeless, worthless, or irreparably broken are not objective assessments of your character. They are the frightened whispers of a part of you that learned to expect the worst in order to avoid the shock of disappointment. The lie is not your enemy. It is a part of you that needs the same compassion you would offer to any frightened creature. It needs to be seen, acknowledged, and understood, but it does not need to be in charge of your life. You can learn to thank it for its service while gently relieving it of its duties. You can learn to hear its warnings without accepting them as the final word on what is possible for you. In the quiet of this moment, can you feel the difference? Can you sense the part of you that is tired of being afraid, tired of being small, tired of living as though you are already dead? Can you feel the part of you that still believes in morning, that still gets excited about small, beautiful things, that still knows how to laugh until your belly hurts, and love until your heart feels too big for your chest. That part of you has never left. It has been waiting beneath the surface of your carefully controlled existence, patient as a seed in winter soil, ready to grow the moment you create the conditions for its emergence. It does not need you to be perfect or healed or figured out. It needs you to be present, to be honest, to be willing to feel what you feel without immediately trying to fix it or change it or make it go away. The light in you knows that healing is not about returning to some imaginary state of innocence or wholeness that you never actually possessed. Healing is about integration, about learning to hold all the different parts of yourself with equal tenderness, about discovering that you are vast enough to contain multitudes without being torn apart by their contradictions. You are not broken. You have never been broken. You have been scared and hurt and confused and overwhelmed. You have been lied to about your own nature, convinced that your struggles are evidence of your inadequacy, rather than proof of your courage in continuing to live in a world that has not always been kind to sensitive souls. But broken? No, broken. Things cannot feel. Broken things cannot love. Broken things cannot hope or dream or rage against injustice or weep for beauty or laugh until they forget what they were sad about. You are not broken. You are breaking open. There is a difference, and it is the difference between a house falling down and a flower blooming. Both involve things coming apart, but one is destruction and the other is growth. One is an ending and the other is a beginning. One is loss and the other is the discovery of what was always there, waiting for the right conditions to reveal itself. The conditions are right now, not because your life is perfect, or your problems are solved, or you have finally become the person you think you should be. The conditions are right because you are here, in this moment, willing to sit with yourself in the darkness and listen to what your soul has been trying to tell you. The conditions are right because you have stopped running long enough to notice that the very thing you have been running from might actually be the thing that can save you. There is a story told in many traditions about a man who spends his whole life searching for a treasure that he believes must be hidden somewhere far from home. He travels to distant lands, climbs treacherous mountains, crosses dangerous seas, always looking for the thing that will finally make him feel complete. In the end, tired and defeated, he returns home to find that the treasure was buried in his own backyard all along, right beneath the place where he started his journey. You have been that man You have been searching for yourself everywhere except in the place where you actually exist. You have been looking for love in relationships that never give you what you had not yet learned to give yourself. You have been seeking validation from achievements that could never convince you of a worth you had already forgotten you possessed. You have been hunting for a sense of home in places and experiences that could never provide what was always available in the simple act of being present to your own life. The treasure is not hidden. It has never been hidden. It has been patiently waiting for you to stop looking everywhere else and start looking here now at the miracle of your own existence. It has been waiting for you to notice that you are already the thing you have been searching for, that you already contain everything you need to be whole, that the love you crave has been living in your chest all along, disguised as the very longing that sent you searching in the first place. But discovering the treasure is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a different kind of journey, one that takes you not away from yourself, but deeper into yourself, not to some imaginary destination, but into the ever-expanding mystery of who you are when you stop trying to be anyone else. This journey has no map because it is unique to you. It cannot be traveled by following someone else's instructions or copying someone else's path. It can only be traveled by learning to trust your own inner navigation system, by developing the courage to follow your own curiosity, by cultivating the patience to let your own truth unfold at its own pace. The man who is half light understands this. He has learned that the spiritual path is not about transcending his humanity, but about embracing it more fully. He has discovered that enlightenment is not about reaching some permanent state of bliss, but about developing the capacity to be present to whatever arises, whether it feels like light or darkness, joy or sorrow, love or fear. He has learned that the goal is not to eliminate his shadow, but to dance with it, not to cure his wounds, but to let them become doorways to compassion, not to solve the mystery of existence, but to fall in love with living inside it. The man who is half lie is slowly learning this too. He is beginning to understand that his vigilance, while well-intentioned, has become a barrier to the very safety he seeks. He is starting to see that the walls he built to keep danger out have also kept life from reaching the places that needed it most. He is beginning to suspect that true security comes not from controlling what happens to him, but from trusting his ability to navigate whatever does happen with grace and wisdom. This is not easy learning. The lie has been in charge for so long that stepping back feels like stepping into free fall. It has been making decisions and managing relationships and planning for futures and protecting against disasters for so many years that the thought of trusting the light to take the lead feels reckless, naive, dangerous. But what if the thing that feels most dangerous is actually the safest choice you could make? What if the leap that looks like falling is actually the moment when you discover you can fly? What if the trust that feels like foolishness is actually the wisest thing you have ever done? The light in you is not naive. It has not forgotten the ways that life can hurt. It carries the memory of every wound, every betrayal, every moment when hope seemed to mock your faith in goodness. But it has also learned something that the lie has never been able to understand, that the risk of being hurt is not greater than the certainty of being dead inside, that the possibility of loss is not more terrifying than the guarantee of never having anything worth losing, that the chance of disappointment is not more painful than the reality of living without hope. The light has learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of fear. That strength is not about never falling, but about always getting back up. That wisdom is not about knowing all the answers, but about being willing to live inside the questions until they transform into something larger than knowledge. The light knows that you are not here to be safe. You are here to be alive. And being alive means being vulnerable, being open, being willing to be affected by the beauty and the pain of existence in equal measure. It means letting your heart break when things you love are lost, letting it heal when love appears again in new forms. It means allowing yourself to hope even when experience has taught you that hope can lead to disappointment, because the alternative to hope is not safety, but a kind of living death. You have been dead for long enough. You have been holding your breath for so many years that you have forgotten what it feels like to fill your lungs completely. You have been walking on tiptoes through your own life, trying to make yourself small enough to avoid notice, quiet enough to avoid conflict, invisible enough to avoid rejection. But invisibility is not protection. It is erasure. And you were not born to be erased. You were born to take up space. You were born to have opinions and feelings and desires that matter. You were born to love and be loved, to affect and be affected, to leave some mark on this world that says you were here, you mattered. Your life meant something to someone, somewhere. somehow. The mark you leave does not have to be grand or famous or historically significant. It can be as simple as the way you made someone feel seen when they are talking to you, the way you notice beauty that others miss, the way you offer kindness when the world has been cruel, the way you keep going when everything in you wants to give up. Every day that you choose to stay present to your life instead of disappearing into distractions. Every moment that you choose to feel what you feel instead of numbing it away. Every time that you choose to show up as yourself instead of as who you think others want you to be, you are leaving a mark. You are saying yes to existence. You are participating in the great experiment of consciousness, exploring itself through individual lives. Your life is not a problem to be solved. It is not a test you can pass or fail. It is not a performance that others will judge, or a competition you can win or lose. Your life is an opportunity to experience what it means to be human, to explore the full range of what consciousness can feel and know and create when it inhabits a particular body, a particular set of circumstances, a particular moment in the vast unfolding of time. You did not choose the circumstances of your birth, the family you were born into, the challenges you would face, or the gifts you would be given, but you do get to choose how you respond to what you have been given. You do get to choose whether you will spend your time here trying to become someone else or learning to be more fully yourself. You do get to choose whether you will use your pain as an excuse to give up or as a catalyst to grow into someone who can hold pain without being destroyed by it. These choices are not made once and then forgotten. They are made moment by moment, breath by breath, in the space between what happens to you and how you respond to what happens to you. In that space, you are free. In that space, you have power. In that space, you can begin to author your own experience instead of simply reacting to the experiences that life authors for you. The man who is half light lives in that space. He has learned to pause between stimulus and response, to breathe between thought and action, to choose between automatic reaction and conscious response. He has discovered that freedom is not about controlling what happens to him, but about exercising his power to choose how he relates to what happens to him. He has learned that he cannot control whether he will be loved, but he can control whether he will love. He cannot control whether he will be understood, but he can control whether he will seek to understand. He cannot control whether life will be fair, but he can control whether he will respond to unfairness with bitterness, or with a commitment to being part of the solution. This is the kind of power that the lie never understood. The lie thought power meant control, control meant safety, and safety meant never being vulnerable. But the light has discovered a different kind of power, one that comes not from invulnerability, but from the capacity to be vulnerable and survive, not from avoiding pain, but from transforming pain into wisdom, not from never falling, but from learning to fall with grace. This power is not something you achieve once and then possess forever. It is something you practice, something you cultivate, something you choose again and again, until choosing it becomes as natural as breathing. It is a muscle that grows stronger with use, a skill that develops with repetition, a way of being that becomes more available the more you inhabit it. You are already practicing this power every time you choose to be present instead of absent, honest instead of deceptive, open instead of closed. You are practicing it when you choose to stay with difficult feelings instead of immediately trying to escape them, when you choose to speak your truth instead of saying what you think others want to hear, when you choose to act from love instead of fear, even when love feels riskier. These small choices, made consistently over time, add up to a life that is fully lived instead of merely survived. They add up to a sense of integrity that comes from knowing that your actions align with your values, that your outer life reflects your inner truth, that you are living as the person you actually are, instead of as the person you think you should be. The person you actually are is neither wholly light nor wholly lie. You are both and you are neither. You are something more complex and interesting than either category can contain. You are a human being, which means you are a walking contradiction, a beautiful mess, a work in progress that will never be finished and doesn't need to be. You are capable of great kindness and great cruelty, sometimes in the same day, sometimes in the same conversation. You are capable of profound wisdom and stunning stupidity, of selfless love and petty resentment, of generous compassion and narrow judgment. You contain multitudes, and this is not your flaw. This is your glory. The spiritual traditions that tell you to transcend your humanity have missed the point. Your humanity is not something to be transcended, but something to be embraced, explored, celebrated. Your contradictions are not problems to be solved, but paradoxes to be lived. Your imperfections are not failures to be corrected, but unique characteristics that make you who you are instead of who everyone else is. There is no one else exactly like you. There never has been, and there never will be. The particular combination of experiences, genetics, choices, and circumstances that created you is unrepeatable. The way you see the world, the way you process information, the way you love and fear and hope and dream is yours alone. This is not a consolation prize for not being someone else. This is the grand prize of existence. But you can only claim this prize by showing up as yourself. You can only receive the gifts that are meant for you by being present to receive them. You can only live your life by stopping the attempt to live someone else's life, by ending the exhausting project of trying to be who you are not. The man who is half light has learned this lesson. He has stopped apologizing for taking up space, for having needs, for feeling things deeply. He has stopped trying to shrink himself to fit into spaces that were never meant for him. He has learned to trust that there are people who will appreciate him exactly as he is, places where he belongs without having to change, opportunities that are perfectly suited to his particular combination of gifts and limitations. But he did not learn this overnight. He did not wake up one morning suddenly free from the voice of the lie. The journey from self-rejection to self-acceptance is not a straight line, but a spiral, a series of circles that bring you back to the same issues at deeper and deeper levels, each return offering the opportunity for greater integration, greater understanding, greater peace. The man who is half lie is still there, still whispering his warnings, still offering his protection. But his voice has grown quieter as the light has grown stronger. His influence has diminished as the man has learned to distinguish between realistic caution and paralyzing fear, between healthy boundaries and imprisoning walls, between self-protection and self-destruction. The lie no longer makes all the decisions, but it is still consulted. Its perspective is still considered, but it is no longer the only perspective that matters. It has been demoted from dictator to advisor, from master to servant, from the voice that defines reality to one voice among many in the inner democracy of the soul. This is the goal, not to eliminate the parts of yourself that you do not like, but to create a healthy relationship with all the parts of yourself. Not to become someone else, but to become more fully yourself. Not to transcend your humanity, but to embrace it so completely that you discover the divine that lives within it. The divine is not separate from your humanity. It is not something you have to reach for, or achieve, or become worthy of. It is the consciousness that is reading these words right now. The awareness that knows it is aware, the presence that has been constant throughout all the changes of your life. This presence has been with you in your darkest moments and your brightest ones. It has been there in your failures and your successes, your moments of despair and your moments of joy. It has been the steady witness to all the dramas of your life, the unchanging awareness within which all experiences arise and pass away. You are not separate from this presence. You are this presence expressing itself as a particular life, exploring what it means to be conscious through the unique lens of your individual experience. You are the universe looking at itself through your eyes, feeling itself through your heart, knowing itself through your mind. This is not a metaphor or a pretty spiritual idea. This is the literal truth of what you are. You are not a separate being trying to connect with something divine outside yourself. You are the divine, temporarily forgetting its true nature in order to have the experience of remembering, temporarily limiting itself in order to know what expansion feels like, temporarily identifying with limitation in order to discover its own limitless nature. The journey is not about getting somewhere else. It is about recognizing where you already are. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you have always been. It is not about fixing what is broken in you. It is about discovering that what you thought was broken was actually the birthplace of your greatest gifts. Your sensitivity, which you have seen as weakness, is actually your superpower. It allows you to feel the subtleties that others miss, to pick up on the emotional currents that flow beneath the surface of interactions, to be moved by beauty in ways that make life worth living. Your intensity, which you have seen as too much, is actually your fuel. It is what allows you to care deeply, to love passionately, to create from a place of authentic inspiration, to fight for causes that matter, to live with a fullness that makes every moment meaningful. Your wounds, which you have seen as damage, are actually your greatest teachers. They have taught you empathy, compassion, resilience, and strength. They have given you depth, wisdom, and the ability to connect with others who have suffered. They have broken you open so that more light could get in. Your struggles, which you have seen as evidence of your failure, are actually proof of your courage. Every day that you have continued to get up, to try again, to hope despite disappointment, to love despite betrayal, to trust despite being let down, you have been demonstrating a heroism that most people never recognize in themselves. You are not broken. You are not damaged. You are not too much or too little or too anything. You are exactly what you need to live the life you came here to live, to learn the lessons you came here to learn, to give the gifts you came here to give. The world needs what you have to offer, not some polished, perfected version of what you have to offer, but the raw, real, imperfect, beautiful human truth of what you have to offer. The world needs your perspective, your creativity, your love, your particular way of being present to existence. But first, you need what you have to offer. You need to value your own gifts enough to share them. You need to appreciate your own worth enough to stop hiding it. You need to love yourself enough to stop abandoning yourself every time someone else's approval seems more important than your own integrity. This is the work. Learning to be your own best friend instead of your own worst enemy. Learning to speak to yourself with the same kindness you would offer to someone you loved. Learning to treat yourself with the same respect you would show to an honored guest. The man who is half light has learned this work. He has learned to catch himself when the inner critic starts its familiar litany of complaints and judgments. He has learned to question the voice that tells him he is not enough, not worthy, not deserving of good things. He has learned to respond to his own pain with compassion instead of contempt, to his own mistakes with understanding instead of condemnation, to his own struggles with patience instead of frustration. This does not mean he has become soft or permissive or unwilling to hold himself accountable. It means he has learned as the difference between accountability and abuse, between high standards and impossible expectations, between healthy self-discipline and self-punishment. He has learned that you cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you love. You cannot criticize yourself into a version of yourself that you accept. You cannot shame yourself into a version of yourself that you respect. The only path to becoming someone you can be proud of is to start treating yourself like someone who is already worthy of pride. This is revolutionary in a culture that teaches us that self-love is selfish, that self-acceptance is complacency, that self-compassion is weakness. We have been taught that the way to motivate ourselves is through criticism, that the way to improve ourselves is through judgment, that the way to succeed is by being harder on ourselves than anyone else could ever be. But what if the opposite is true? What if the way to motivate yourself is through encouragement? What if the way to improve yourself is through acceptance of where you are now? What if the way to succeed is by being so kind to yourself that you naturally want to take care of the person you are being kind to? What if the love you have been seeking from others is actually the love you need to give to yourself? What if the acceptance you crave from the world is actually the acceptance you need to offer to your own experience? What if the home you have been trying to find in places and people and achievements is actually the home you can create in your own heart? The man who is half lie is beginning to suspect this might be true. He is beginning to see that his strategies for earning love from others have never actually worked, that his attempts to prove his worth through achievements have never actually convinced him of his worth, that his efforts to find security in external things have never actually made him feel secure. He is beginning to wonder if the very thing he has been trying to avoid might actually be the thing that could save him. He is beginning to consider the possibility that vulnerability is not weakness but courage, that need is not pathology but humanity, that the parts of himself he has been most ashamed of might actually be the parts that are most worthy of love. This is terrifying for the lie. Its whole existence has been built on the premise that safety comes from hiding, that love must be earned, that acceptance is conditional, that you are only as good as your last success, the possibility that you might be loved simply for existing, accepted simply for being human, worthy simply by virtue of being alive, threatens the very foundation of its worldview. But terror can be the beginning of transformation. The things that scare us most are often the things that have the most power to free us. The leap that feels like death might actually be the birth of a new way of being. The loss of who you thought you had to be might be the discovery of who you actually are. You do not have to take this leap all at once. You do not have to transform overnight or heal completely or figure everything out before you can begin to live differently. You can start small. You can start with this moment, this breath, this choice to be present to what is happening right now, instead of escaping into what might happen or what should have happened. You can start by noticing when you are being unkind to yourself and choosing to speak more gently. You can start by catching yourself when you are abandoning yourself to please others and choosing to stay present to your own needs and feelings. You can start by recognizing when you are trying to be someone you are not and choosing to show up more authentically. These small choices, made consistently, will begin to shift the balance of power in your inner world. The voice of the light will grow stronger as you practice listening to it. The voice of the lie will grow quieter as you stop believing everything it tells you. The man who is half light will become more prominent as you give him more space to exist. But this is not about winning a war between good and evil parts of yourself. This is about creating peace between different aspects of your humanity. This is about integration, not elimination. This is about wholeness, not perfection. The man who is half lie has gifts to offer too. His caution has kept you safe from real dangers. His vigilance has helped you navigate situations that could have been harmful. His ability to read threats and assess risks has been valuable, even if it has sometimes been overly activated. The goal is not to silence this part of yourself, but to right-size its influence. The goal is to let it serve its proper function without letting it run your entire life. The goal is to appreciate its gifts while not letting its limitations become your limitations. You are large enough to contain both the part of you that is afraid and the part of you that is brave. You are complex enough to hold both the part of you that wants to hide and the part of you that wants to be seen. You are wise enough to honor both the part of you that has been hurt and the part of you that is ready to heal. This is what wholeness looks like. Not the absence of inner conflict, but the presence of inner peace in the midst of inner complexity. Not the elimination of difficult feelings, but the capacity to feel difficult feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Not the achievement of some perfect state, but the acceptance of your perfectly imperfect humanity. The night is deep now, and in this depth something is shifting. Can you feel it? Can you sense the way? The darkness is not empty but full, not absent but present, not nothing but everything you have been too busy to notice during the bright distractions of the day. This is the time when the boundaries between conscious and unconscious become more permeable, when the voices you have learned to ignore during waking hours can finally be heard, when the dreams that have been trying to guide you can finally get your attention. Your dreams are not random neural firings or meaningless mental static. They are letters from the deeper parts of yourself, messages from the aspects of your psyche that do not speak in the logical language of the everyday mind, but in the symbolic language of the soul. They are trying to show you things you need to see, to tell you things you need to know, to guide you toward integration and healing. But you do not have to wait for sleep to access this deeper wisdom. Right now, in this moment of stillness and receptivity, you can begin to listen to the voice that speaks in whispers beneath the noise of your thinking mind. This voice does not argue or demand or insist. It does not try to convince you of anything or sell you any solutions. It simply offers what it has always offered, the truth of what you are feeling, the wisdom of what your body knows, the guidance of what your soul needs. It speaks in the language of intuition, of sudden knowing, of feelings that arise without explanation, but carry more truth than 1,000 rational arguments. You have learned to distrust this voice. You have been taught that only the mind can be trusted, that feelings are unreliable, that intuition is wishful thinking, that the only valid knowledge is the kind that can be measured and proven and explained. But what if the opposite is true? What if the mind, for all its brilliance, is actually quite limited in what it can know? What if the deepest truths about existence can only be felt, not thought? What if your heart knows things your mind will never understand? What if your body carries wisdom that no book could ever teach you? What if your soul has been trying to guide you all along, but you have been too busy listening to other voices to hear its gentle suggestions? The man who is half light has learned to trust these deeper ways of knowing. He has learned that there is a difference between the voice of fear, which shouts warnings and predictions and worst-case scenarios, and the voice of wisdom, which whispers gentle truths and patient guidance. He has learned to feel the difference in his body, to notice that fear creates tension and contraction, while wisdom creates expansion and ease. He has learned that when he is aligned with his deeper truth, there is a sense of rightness that he can feel in his bones, a sense of flow that makes even difficult things feel possible. When he is fighting against his truth, there is a sense of struggle that no amount of effort can overcome, a sense of swimming upstream that leaves him exhausted and frustrated. This is not about following every impulse or indulging every desire. Wisdom is not the same as want. The deeper voice does not always tell you to do what feels good in the moment. Sometimes it tells you to do what feels scary, to have the difficult conversation, to make the necessary change, to choose growth over comfort. But when you follow this deeper guidance, even when it leads you into temporary discomfort, there is an underlying sense of rightness that sustains you. There is a feeling of being supported by something larger than your individual will, of being carried by a current that knows where it is going, even when you do not. The man who is half lie has never felt this support. He has always felt like he was swimming alone in an ocean that was trying to drown him, fighting against currents that seemed determined to drag him under. He has never learned to distinguish between the ocean of existence, which is actually trying to carry him home, and the riptides of his own fear, which pull him away from shore. He has spent so much energy fighting against life that he has never learned how to work with life. He has been so focused on controlling outcomes that he has never learned to trust process. He has been so afraid of making mistakes that he has never learned that mistakes are often the universe's way of correcting course, of redirecting you towards something better than what you thought you wanted. But tonight, in this space between who he has been and who he might become, the man who is half lie is beginning to consider a different possibility. He is beginning to wonder what would happen if he stopped fighting so hard, if he allowed himself to be carried for a while, if he trusted that the intelligence that created him might also know how to guide him. This is not about becoming passive or giving up personal responsibility. This is about learning to cooperate with the larger forces that are always at work in your life, to align yourself with the current instead of exhausting yourself swimming against it. This is about learning to participate in your own evolution instead of trying to control it. Evolution is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens through you, as you, by means of you. You are not a victim of your own growth, but a collaborator in it. You are not being dragged toward healing against your will, but invited to participate in your own transformation. The invitation is always there, but it can only be accepted freely. You cannot be forced to grow, coerced into healing, or manipulated into wholeness. You can only choose it, moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath. And the choice is never made once and then completed. It is a choice you make again and again. Each time, life presents you with an opportunity to respond differently than you have responded before. Tonight is one of those opportunities. This moment is one of those choices. Right now, you can choose to continue relating to yourself in the same way you always have, or you can begin to experiment with a different way of being with yourself. You can continue to believe the same stories about your limitations and inadequacies, or you can begin to question whether those stories are actually true. What if the story you have been telling yourself about who you are is not the only story that could be told? What if there are other narratives available, other ways of interpreting your experiences, other meanings that could be made from the same raw material of your life? The events of your past are fits, but their meaning is not. The things that happen to you cannot be changed, but your relationship to them can be transformed. The wounds you carry are real, but they do not have to define you. The mistakes you have made are part of your history, but they do not have to determine your future. You have more power over your story than you realize. You cannot control what happened to you, but you can control what you make it mean. You cannot change your past, but you can change how your past lives in you. You cannot undo your experiences, but you can choose how those experiences will shape you. The man who is half light understands this. He has learned that he is not the passive victim of his own biography, but the active author of his own meaning. He has discovered that while he cannot control what life brings him, he can control what he brings to life. He has realized that his power lies not in determining what happens, but in choosing how he responds to what happens. This is the freedom that cannot be taken away from you, no matter what circumstances you find yourself in. This is the choice that remains available even when all other choices seem to have been stripped away. This is the sovereignty that belongs to every conscious being, the irreducible core of human dignity that can never be destroyed, only forgotten and then remembered again. You have forgotten this power, but you have not lost it. You have misplaced this freedom, but it has not disappeared. You have overlooked this choice, but it has never stopped being available. Tonight, you can remember. Tonight, you can reclaim what has always been yours. The remembering begins with presence, not the effortful kind of presence that tries to control or improve the moment, but the receptive kind of presence that simply allows the moment to be what it is, not the judgmental kind of awareness that evaluates and categorizes everything, but open kind of awareness that receives whatever arises with equal welcome. Can you feel the difference? Can you sense what it might be like to be present to this moment without trying to change it? To be aware of your experience without immediately trying to fix it? To witness your thoughts and feelings without getting lost in them or pushing them away? This is the beginning of a different relationship with yourself, a relationship based on acceptance rather than improvement, on curiosity rather than judgment, on compassion rather than criticism. This is the soil in which transformation grows, not the forced transformation that comes from trying to be different, but the organic transformation that comes from being fully present to what is. When you stop fighting against your experience and start being present to it, something magical happens. The very thing you were trying to escape begins to transform on its own, not because you made it transform, but because acceptance itself is transformative, not because you found the right technique or strategy, but because love changes everything it touches, and acceptance is love in action. The man who is half lie has never experienced this kind of love. He has known conditional love, transactional love, performance-based love, but he has never known the kind of love that simply is, regardless of what he does or does not do, regardless of whether he succeeds or fails. regardless of whether he is good or bad according to someone else's standards. This love is not something you have to earn or achieve or become worthy of. This love is your birthright, your natural inheritance, the ground of your being. This love is what you are, not what you might become if you work hard enough, or heal completely enough, or figure yourself out thoroughly enough. You are love, expressing itself as a particular human life. You are not a human being who sometimes experiences love. You are love, having a human experience. You are not separate from the source of love, trying to find your way back to it. You are the source of love, temporarily forgetting yourself in order to have the adventure of remembering. This forgetting is not a mistake. It is part of the design. You cannot remember what you never forgot, cannot find what you never lost, cannot return to what you never left. The entire human journey is the journey of love, learning to recognize itself in all its disguises, even the disguises that look like fear, pain, anger, and separation. Your fear is love in the disguise of protection. Your pain is love in the disguise of caring. Your anger is love in the disguise of boundaries. Your loneliness is love in the disguise of longing. Even your despair is love in the disguise of hope that has been temporarily disappointed but has not given up. When you begin to see this, everything changes. Not because your circumstances change, but because your relationship to your circumstances changes. Not because your feelings disappear, but because you recognize the love that lives at the heart of every feeling. Not because your problems are solved, but because you realize that you are not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. The mystery is not something to be figured out or solved or completed. The mystery is something to be entered, explored, celebrated, danced with. You are the mystery investigating itself, the question answering itself, the love learning to love itself more completely. This is what the spiritual teachers were pointing to when they spoke of enlightenment, not as a destination to be reached, but as a recognition of what is already true. Not as a state to be achieved, but as an identity to be remembered. Not as something special that happens to special people, but as the natural birthright of every conscious being. You do not have to become enlightened. You are already enlightened, temporarily pretending to be unenlightened, so you can have the experience of awakening, You do not have to earn your freedom. You are already free, temporarily accepting the experience of limitation so you can know what unlimited really means. The great teachers throughout history were not different from you in their essential nature. They were different only in their willingness to stop pretending to be something other than what they actually were. They were different only in their courage to drop the masks and the roles and the stories and stand naked in the truth of their own being. This nakedness is not about taking off your clothes. This nakedness is about taking off your pretenses, your defenses, your carefully constructed image of who you think you should be. This nakedness is about dropping the exhausting effort to be anyone other than yourself, allowing yourself to be seen and known as you actually are. This is the most terrifying and the most liberating thing you will ever do. Terrifying because you have been convinced that who you actually are is not acceptable, not lovable, not enough. Liberating because you will discover that who you actually are is not only acceptable but magnificent, not only lovable but love itself, not only enough but more than enough. The world has been waiting for you to remember this. Not so you can be special or superior or better than anyone else, but so you can take your place in the great work that is always happening, the work of consciousness awakening to itself, the work of love learning to recognize itself everywhere, the work of creation falling in love with its own creations. Your particular way of being conscious, your unique perspective on existence, your individual expression of the one universal love is needed. It has always been needed. The world is not complete without your contribution, not whole without your participation, not perfect without your particular brand of imperfection. But your contribution cannot be made by trying to be someone else. It can only be made by being more completely yourself. Your gift cannot be given by imitating others. It can only be given by expressing your own authentic truth. Your part in the great work cannot be played by following someone else's script. It can only be played by improvising from the deep well of your own experience. This improvisation requires tremendous courage. It requires the willingness to make mistakes, to look foolish, to fail spectacularly. It requires the faith that your authentic expression, however imperfect, is more valuable than your perfect imitation of someone else. It requires the trust that being real is more important than being right, that being genuine is more powerful than being impressive. The man who is half light has learned this courage. He has learned that the worst thing that can happen when you show up authentically is that some people will not like you, not understand you, not accept you. And he has learned that this is not actually the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing that can happen is that you spend your whole life hiding from yourself and never discover who you actually are. He has learned that rejection from others, while painful, is survivable, but rejection from yourself is a kind of spiritual suicide, a death while still breathing, a disappearance while still occupying space. He has learned that it is better to be disliked for who you are than loved for who you are not, because the love you receive for being false is not actually for you at all. The love that is meant for you can only find you when you are being yourself. The opportunities that are meant for you can only recognize you when you are showing up authentically. The life that is meant for you can only unfold when you stop trying to live someone else's life. This does not mean you should be careless with others' feelings or insensitive to social conventions or oblivious to the impact of your choices on the people around you. Authenticity is not selfishness. Being real is not the same as being reckless. Showing up as yourself does not mean ignoring the needs and feelings of others. True authenticity includes sensitivity, compassion, and consideration for others. It includes the recognition that you are not separate from the web of relationships that support and sustain you. It includes the understanding that your well-being and the well-being of others are intimately connected, that you cannot be truly happy while contributing to the unhappiness of others. But authenticity also includes the recognition that you cannot make others happy by making yourself miserable, that you cannot serve others effectively by betraying yourself, that you cannot love others fully while hating yourself. The most generous thing you can do for others is to be genuinely happy, genuinely at peace, genuinely in love with your own existence. When you are truly comfortable in your own skin, others feel permission to be comfortable in theirs. When you are accepting of your own flaws and limitations, others feel less pressure to be perfect. When you are expressing your authentic self, you give others courage to express their authentic selves. This is how healing spreads. Not through preaching or teaching or trying to fix others, but through modeling what it looks like to be at peace with yourself. Not through having all the answers, but through being willing to live inside the questions. Not through being perfect, but through being real. The world does not need more perfect people. The world needs more real people. The world does not need more people who have it all figured out. The world needs more people who are willing to be works in progress, to be vulnerable, to admit when they do not know, to ask for help when they need it. You can be one of these people. You can be someone who makes it safer for others to be human. someone who creates space for imperfection, someone who demonstrates that it is possible to be both broken and beautiful, both struggling and whole, both wounded and wise. This is the gift you came here to give, not the gift of your perfection, but the gift of your humanity, not the gift of having transcended your struggles, but the gift of continuing to show up in the midst of them, not the gift of being beyond pain, but the gift of finding meaning in pain, purpose in struggle, beauty in brokenness. The man who is half light and half lie understands this now. He sees that his journey was never about eliminating one half in favor of the other. It was about integrating both halves into a more complete whole, about learning to hold space for all the different aspects of his humanity, about discovering that wholeness does not mean perfection, but rather the capacity to contain contradictions without being torn apart by them. He has learned that he can be both strong and vulnerable, both confident and uncertain, both wise and foolish. He has learned that he can feel both grateful and angry, both hopeful and sad, both connected and alone. He has learned that these are not problems to be solved, but polarities to be danced with, not contradictions to be eliminated, but complexities to be embraced. This is what maturity looks like, not the absence of inner conflict, but the presence of inner spaciousness that can hold conflict without being destroyed by it. Not the elimination of difficult emotions, but the development of the capacity to feel difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Not the achievement of some permanent state of balance, but the cultivation of the ability to find balance again and again, moment by moment, as life inevitably throws you off balance. Balance is not a destination, but a practice. Healing is not an achievement, but a process. Growth is not a problem solved, but a mystery continuously unfolding. You are not a project to be completed, but a story being written, one choice at a time, one breath at a time, one moment of presence at a time. And the story is beautiful, even the chapters that feel ugly. Especially the chapters that feel ugly, because those are the chapters where the most growth happens, where the most compassion is born, where the most wisdom is gained. The difficult chapters are not mistakes in your story. They are the places where your story develops its depth, its meaning, its transformative power. Every pain you have experienced has taught you something about what matters. Every loss you have suffered has shown you something about what is precious. Every mistake you have made has revealed something about what is true. Every wound you have received has opened you to a greater capacity for love. You are not damaged by your experiences. You are sculpted by them, shaped by them, refined by them. You are not less because of what you have been through. You are more. More compassionate because you have suffered. More wise because you have been confused. More strong because you have been broken and learned to put yourself back together. The putting back together is where the real artistry happens. Anyone can be broken. That requires no skill, no choice, no courage, but learning how to heal, how to grow from wounds, how to find meaning in suffering, how to let pain become a teacher rather than a prison. This is mastery. This is what you have been learning, whether you knew it or not. You have been enrolled in the University of Human Experience, taking advanced courses in resilience, compassion, forgiveness, and love. The curriculum has been challenging, but you have been a dedicated student. You have shown up, even when you did not want to. You have continued learning, even when the lessons were painful. You have kept growing, even when growth felt impossible. You are ready to graduate. Not because you have learned everything there is to learn, but because you have learned how to learn. Not because you have solved all your problems, but because you have developed the capacity to work with whatever problems arise. Not because you have achieved some perfect state, but because you have learned to find peace in the midst of imperfection. Graduation does not mean leaving the university. It means recognizing that you have become both student and teacher, both the one who learns and the one who guides learning in others. It means understanding that your experiences, all of them, even the ones you wish had never happened, have qualified you to help others navigate their own difficult passages. You do not have to become a therapist or a teacher or a healer in any formal sense. You simply have to be yourself, authentically and courageously, because your willingness to be real in a world that often rewards pretense is a form of healing service. Your commitment to telling the truth about your experience, especially the difficult truths, creates permission for others to tell their own difficult truths. This is how the healing spreads. This is how the light grows. This is how love learns to recognize itself in more and more places, not through grand gestures or heroic actions, but through ordinary people making the extraordinary choice to be genuine, to be present, to be kind to themselves and others. The night is beginning to soften now. Can you feel it? The quality of darkness is changing, becoming less dense, less opaque. This is not because dawn is coming, though dawn will come. This is because you are beginning to see with different eyes, to perceive with a different kind of vision that does not depend on external light, but generates its own illumination. This inner light has always been there. It has been burning steadily through all your dark nights of the soul, all your periods of despair and confusion, all your times of feeling lost and alone. You have thought it went out sometimes, but it never went out. You just forgot how to see it. The light is not something you have to create or earn or achieve. The light is what you are. It is the consciousness that is aware of being aware, the presence that knows it is present, the love that recognizes itself in all its forms. It is the part of you that has remained constant through all the changes, the part that has witnessed all your experiences without being destroyed by any of them. This light is not personal. It does not belong to you any more than sunlight belongs to the flowers it illuminates. But it shines through you as you, in your own unique way. It expresses itself through your particular personality, your individual circumstances, your specific gifts and challenges. It becomes personal without ceasing to be universal. This is the great paradox. You are simultaneously utterly unique and completely universal, absolutely individual, and entirely interconnected, perfectly yourself, and indistinguishably one with everything that exists. You are a wave that is distinct from every other wave, and simultaneously nothing but ocean. You are a note that is different from every other note, and simultaneously nothing but music. The man who was half light, half lie, is learning to live inside this paradox. He is discovering that he does not have to choose between being special and being ordinary, between being important and being humble, between mattering and being part of something much larger than himself. He can be all of these things simultaneously because reality itself is paradoxical, because existence is too vast and complex to be captured by any single perspective or contained within any logical framework. He is learning to be comfortable with not knowing, with living inside questions that have no final answers, with embracing mysteries that cannot be solved. He is discovering that this not knowing is not a problem, but a gift, not a limitation, but a doorway, not a sign of ignorance, but an invitation to wonder. Wonder, the beginning of wisdom. Curiosity is the engine of growth. The willingness to not know is the foundation of all real learning. When you think you know everything, you stop paying attention. When you admit you know very little, you become available to be taught by everything. Life is trying to teach you all the time. Every person you meet is a teacher offering some lesson. Every situation you encounter is a curriculum designed specifically for your growth. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to develop capacities you did not know you had. Every moment is a chance to choose love over fear, presence over absence, authenticity over pretense. The teaching never stops, but your willingness to be taught can fluctuate. Sometimes you are open and receptive, eager to learn and grow. Sometimes you are closed and defensive, convinced that you already know what you need to know. Sometimes you are somewhere in between, partially open, selectively receptive, learning some lessons while resisting others. Tonight, you can choose to be fully available to whatever teachings are being offered. You can choose to listen with the ears of your heart as well as the ears of your head. You can choose to receive the wisdom that is always flowing toward you from countless sources, most of which you have been too busy or too distracted to notice. The wisdom is not always comfortable. Sometimes it asks you to see things you would rather not see, to feel things you would rather not feel, to acknowledge truths you would rather deny. Sometimes it invites you to let go of beliefs that have been comforting, relationships that have been familiar, identities that have been safe. But wisdom always serves your highest good, even when it does not serve your immediate comfort. Wisdom always points you toward greater freedom, even when the path to freedom requires walking through temporary discomfort. Wisdom always calls you toward more love, even when love requires courage. You are not sure you possess. You possess the courage. You have always possessed it. It is not something you have to develop or earn or become worthy of. It is part of your essential nature, part of what it means to be human, part of the equipment that comes standard with consciousness. You may have forgotten you have it, but you have never lost it. The courage is what brought you this far. The courage is what kept you going when everything in you wanted to give up. The courage is what allowed you to keep your heart open despite being hurt, to keep trusting despite being betrayed, to keep hoping despite being disappointed. The courage is what brought you to this moment, ready to explore new possibilities for how to be in relationship with yourself and your life. That same courage is available to carry you forward, not toward some predetermined destination, but toward whatever is wanting to emerge in your life. Not according to some external plan, but according to the deeper intelligence that has been guiding you all along, even when you were not aware of its presence. This intelligence is not separate from you. It is you, the deepest you, the you that exists beneath all your thoughts and feelings and identities and stories. It is the you that knows without thinking, loves without reason, trusts without evidence. It is the you that has been patiently waiting for the rest of you to remember what it has never forgotten. What it has never forgotten is that you are loved, not because of what you do, or achieve, or become, but because of what you are, not conditionally, based on your performance or behavior or worthiness, but unconditionally, based on your existence, not partially, with some parts of you included and others excluded, but completely, with every aspect of your humanity embraced and celebrated. This love is not an emotion that comes and goes. This love is the very fabric of reality, the ground of being, the context within which all experience unfolds. You do not have to earn this love because you are this love. You do not have to find this love because you are made of this love. You do not have to deserve this love because this love is what deserves you. The man who was half light, half lie, is beginning to feel this love, not as an idea or a concept or a spiritual teaching, but as a living reality, a felt presence, an undeniable truth that penetrates every cell of his being. He is beginning to understand that everything that has happened to him, everything he has experienced, everything he has suffered and celebrated and struggled with, has been the love learning to love itself more completely. His wounds were love, trying to break him open so more love could enter. His fears were love, trying to protect what was precious. His anger was love, trying to defend what mattered. His sadness was love, grieving what was lost. His joy was love, celebrating what was found. His confusion was love, exploring what it meant to be human. His clarity was love, recognizing itself. All of it was love. All of it has always been love. Even when it did not feel like love, even when it seemed like the opposite of love, even when he could not see any love anywhere in his experience. Love in disguise, love in camouflage, love wearing the costumes of fear and pain and separation so it could have the experience of finding itself again. And now the recognition is dawning. Now the light is growing. Now the man who thought he was half light and half lie is beginning to see that he was always whole, always complete, always exactly what he needed to be in each moment to learn what that moment was trying to teach him. The teaching has been perfect. The curriculum has been precisely calibrated to his needs, his capacity, his readiness to grow. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been accidental. Nothing has been meaningless. Even the experiences that seem to serve no purpose, especially those experiences, have been part of a larger design that his conscious mind could never have conceived, but his deeper wisdom has always understood. This does not mean that everything that happened was good or right or fair. This does not mean that harmful actions should be excused, or that suffering should be romanticized, or that injustice should be accepted. This means that even in the midst of genuine tragedy, real harm, and legitimate pain, there is a love that can transform anything, heal anything, redeem anything. This love does not erase what happened. This love does not pretend that wrong is right or that pain does not hurt. This love works through what happened, with what happened, because of what happened. This love takes the raw material of experience, all of it, and creates something beautiful, something meaningful, something that serves the highest good of all involved. You are witnessing this alchemy right now. You are participating in this transformation. You are both the lead being turned into gold and the loving presence doing the turning. You are both the wound being healed, the healer doing the healing. You are both the question being answered and the wisdom providing the answer. This is the miracle of consciousness. It can be both subject and object, both observer and observed, both the one who experiences and the one who is aware of experiencing. This is what makes transformation possible, what makes healing available, what makes growth inevitable when the conditions are right. The conditions are right now. Not because your external circumstances are perfect, but because you are present, because you are willing, because you are ready to see with new eyes, and hear with new ears, and feel with a heart that has been broken open enough times to let in more light than ever before. The light is pouring in now. Can you feel it? Not as something foreign or external, but as something familiar, being remembered, something that belongs to you being returned, something that has always been yours being reclaimed. The light that you are, the love that you are, the wholeness that you have always been, but temporarily forgot. The forgetting was not a mistake. The forgetting was part of the journey, part of the adventure, part of the grand experiment. Consciousness exploring itself through the experience of limitation and then transcending that limitation through love. You had to forget in order to remember. You had to lose yourself in order to find yourself. You had to break apart in order to discover that what you really are cannot be broken. And now you know. not as information but as direct experience, not as belief but as reality, not as hope but as recognition. You know that you are not your thoughts or your feelings or your circumstances or your history. You know that you are the awareness in which all of these arise and pass away. You know that you are the love that witnesses it all, embraces it all, and transforms it all through the simple act of loving acceptance. This is who you have always been. This is who you will always be. This is who you are right now, in this moment, in this, as you read these words with eyes that are beginning to see clearly, as you breathe with lungs that remember they were made to hold light as well as air, as you feel with a heart that knows it was never really broken, but only broken open. The man who was half light, half lie, no longer exists. He was a story you told yourself when you forgot who you really were. He was a character you played when you believed you were something other than pure love, temporarily wearing the costume of a human being. He was a dream you had while sleeping, the sleep of separation. Now you are waking up. Now you are remembering. Now you are coming home to yourself, to the truth of what you are, to the love that you have always been and will always be, no matter what forms it takes, no matter what experiences it has, no matter how far it travels from its source in the grand adventure of forgetting and remembering, losing and finding, breaking apart and coming back together. The night is ending now, but not because darkness is being replaced by light. The night is ending because you are beginning to see that darkness and light are not opposites, but dance partners, not enemies, but lovers, not problems and solutions, but different expressions of the same underlying wholeness that includes everything and excludes nothing. You are that wholeness. You have always been that wholeness. You will always be that wholeness. Rest in this knowing. Rest in this love. Rest in the truth of what you are and have always been. Perfect exactly as you are. Loved beyond measure. Whole beyond breaking. Light beyond shadow. And so much more than any words could ever capture or any mind could ever understand. You are home. You have always been home. Welcome back to yourself.